On our Crime Doc channel, we present you with a gripping case that unfolded on Sunday, August 17, 2014. Robert Lyman, 38 years old, was called upon to fill in for a coworker at his job, a familiar occurrence given his reputation for dedication and readiness to shoulder extra duties. His workplace was the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway train yard in Tahachapi, California, situated about a 45-minute drive from his home in Silver Lakes Helendale, Kern County, where he resided with his wife, Sabrina Lyman, and their two. Before departing for work, Robert assured his family of his return after his shift, but regrettably, he did not make it back home that day. Sabrina had spoken with Robert earlier in the morning, where he mentioned being occupied with work and grabbing a hurried tuna melt for lunch. But what happened next? Expect a shocking twist at the end of the video. Join us on this captivating true crime documentary investigation as we delve into the mystery surrounding the actions of Michelle Troconis. Later in the day, Sabrina visited her mother, who was recovering from a recent hip injury. Around 5:00 p.m., she sent Robert a text message, but his lack of response did not initially alarm her, considering his busy workday. Robert was anticipated home by 5:00 p.m., yet as the evening progressed without his arrival, Sabrina's concern mounted. Despite her persistent attempts to contact him via text and phone calls, she received no reply, leaving her anxiously awaiting any news of his whereabouts. Shortly thereafter, two of Robert's coworkers arrived at Sabrina's doorstep with solemn news. Robert had been injured while on duty. Sabrina later informed the detective that she initially perceived this as indicative of a workplace accident, given her knowledge that Robert had sustained head injuries from blunt force. However, police investigations uncovered the grim reality. Robert had not fallen victim to a workplace mishap, but had been intentionally murdered. When questioned by authorities regarding potential motives or suspects, Sabrina and those close to Robert maintained they were unaware of anyone who would harbor ill intentions toward him. Described as amiable and easygoing by coworkers, friends, and family, Robert appeared to have no identifiable adversaries. In response to the tragedy, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway offered a substantial reward of $100,000 for any information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of the individual responsible for Robert's homicide. Robert's body was found inside one of the railway yard buildings around 6:46 p.m., having been last seen by coworkers roughly an hour earlier at 4:00 p.m. He had sustained 2 gunshot wounds, one to the face passing through and exiting his neck, and another to the chest with the bullet trajectory traveling upward and lodging in his jaw. Law enforcement obtained surveillance footage from a security camera capturing an enigmatic figure wandering the railway yard, clad in bulky clothing and exhibiting a noticeable limp. This individual was observed on the footage, prompting authorities to broaden their investigation beyond the immediate vicinity. Police acquired additional footage from a nearby gas station surveillance camera, revealing a person resembling the figure seen in the railway yard footage. This individual was riding a motorcycle, and the timing closely aligned with the suspected time of the murder. Exploring various possibilities, police considered the notion that the shooting may have been the result of a robbery within the yard, particularly given the tampering with Robert's office. However, this explanation appeared unlikely given the presence of other offices and businesses nearby that potentially held more valuable assets. Instead, investigators leaned toward the hypothesis that Robert had been specifically targeted. As authorities delved into potential motives, Sabrina turned to her social media platforms to express her profound grief and admiration for Robert. Amidst the unbearable pain and tragedy, she emphasized the enduring nature of Rob's love. She reflected on the blessing of having had Robert's presence for the time they shared, acknowledging the depth of love he bestowed upon them, surpassing what many may ever experience or express. Sabrina vowed to carry his love with her wherever she went and to ensure their children were reminded of it daily as they grew. Despite the bittersweet feeling of joy, she admitted feeling completely numb to the harsh reality of being left behind on Earth without him. Meanwhile, as police delved deeper into Robert's life in search of potential motives, they received a call from a man named Jason Bertine. Jason and his wife Kelly were known to be close friends of Sabrina and Robert. However, as investigators continued their inquiries, they uncovered a more intricate relationship between them. It came to light that they were not just friends, but were involved in a swinger-type group where couples engaged in sexual activities with others, and the Lymans were active participants. Despite this revelation, Jason's call to the police was not directly related to their lifestyle. Instead, Jason expressed concerns about a man named Jonathan Heron and urged authorities to speak with him. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the investigation. Jason disclosed to the police that he had become aware of Sabrina's extramarital affair with Jonathan Heron, a 24-year-old firefighter whom he knew through work and mutual social gathering. Despite Jason's confrontation with Jonathan, imploring him to cease the affair, his warnings proved futile, and Sabrina and Jonathan continued their relationship. According to Jason, his initial interaction with Jonathan left him emotionally overwhelmed, leading him to express his displeasure in a confrontational manner. Furthermore, Jason's wife, Kelly, recalled witnessing Jonathan visiting Sabrina's residence shortly after Robert's murder, bearing a significant bouquet of flowers specifically noted as Sabrina's favorite. Notably, Jonathan sent Jason a series of text messages following Robert's death, which struck Jason as peculiar and prompted him to contact the authorities. These messages from Jonathan appeared to revolve around seeking forgiveness for perceived wrongdoing. Kelly also disclosed that Sabrina had shared with her a letter she received from Jonathan, in which he praised Robert's character and expressed remorse for his actions despite the lack of any arrests in connection with Robert's death. Sabrina seemed notably content about the letter, which raised Kelly's unease regarding the situation. Kelly recounted Sabrina's reaction, quoting her as saying, "Isn't this sweet? Listen to this. Listen to how sweet Jonathan is." Detectives harbored suspicions regarding Jonathan and Sabrina's involvement in Robert's death. However, they chose not to disclose their knowledge of the affair to Sabrina during the ongoing investigation. Instead, they subtly probed into Sabrina's marriage, utilizing Robert's phone, which contained explicit images of various women, including Sabrina herself. When questioned about possible infidelity or an open marriage arrangement, Sabrina vehemently denied any such arrangement, insisting that she and Robert had a strong relationship. Sabrina's adamant denial only served to intensify the detectives' suspicions, although she and Robert were indeed engaged in a consensual open relationship. Why lie about it? This inconsistency further fueled doubts about Sabrina's honesty and raised concerns about what else she might be hiding. Over the course of a 3-month investigation, evidence gradually confirmed Sabrina's long-standing affair with Jonathan, spanning nearly 2 years. Employing wiretaps and strategic planning, detectives devised a straightforward yet effective strategy. They deliberately provided Sabrina with false information about their investigation and closely monitored whether she would disclose this information to Jonathan. Sabrina's subsequent sharing of these fabricated details validated the detectives' suspicions. Recordings of Sabrina's conversations with the detective revealed a troubling pattern. Immediately after concluding discussions with law enforcement, she would promptly reach out to Jonathan and divulge the details of their conversations. Their conversations, as captured in these recordings, often revolved around their professed love for each other, acknowledgement of their sins, and their shared desire for divine forgiveness. Laden with pleas for absolution, Jonathan openly admitted, "We've been dirtbags. We've been sinners." As the investigation progressed, law enforcement meticulously gathered information not only from phone recordings, but also through scrutinizing surveillance footage and following up on tips provided to the hotline. When authorities obtained a clearer image of the individual captured in the surveillance footage, they presented it to Sabrina, citing a tip identifying the man as someone named Jen with connections to Robert. Upon questioning, Sabrina provided the names of 2 men she knew named Jen but notably omitted any mention of Jonathan. However, individuals familiar with Jonathan recognized him in the image and promptly alerted the police. Subsequently, both Jonathan and Sabrina were arrested and questioned regarding Robert's murder. Sabrina was released due to a lack of evidence, while Jonathan was charged with first-degree murder. Sabrina was informed that she would be summoned to testify against Jonathan. However, this scenario never came to fruition. Unbeknownst to Sabrina at the time, Jonathan had decided to cooperate with the authorities in exchange for his cooperation and to avoid the possibility of a life sentence without parole. Jonathan pleaded guilty to manslaughter and received a sentence of 25 years and 4 months in prison. He acknowledged his responsibility for voluntary manslaughter with firearm enhancement, attempted murder, poisoning, and being an accessory to murder. Meanwhile, Sabrina faced first-degree murder charges and entered a plea of not guilty. During Sabrina's trial, the prosecution argued that while Jonathan physically carried out the shooting and killing of Robert, Sabrina was actively involved in planning and executing the murder, making her equally responsible. Prosecutor Eric Smith emphasized to the court that there was ample evidence, beyond Jonathan's testimony, implicating Sabrina, including wiretapped phone calls, text messages, and her deceptive behavior towards law enforcement. Smith contended that these pieces of evidence pointed to Sabrina's complicity in orchestrating the crimes. The court was presented with details about the extensive communication between Sabrina and Jonathan on the day of Robert's murder, with Jonathan making 5 calls to Sabrina, totaling 3 hours and 43 minutes of conversation. Furthermore, the prosecution highlighted Sabrina's role in providing Jonathan with information about Robert's whereabouts and work schedule on the day of the incident. Prosecutors contended that Sabrina's motive for orchestrating her husband's murder stemmed from her desire for a new life with Jonathan. They argued that Sabrina aimed to eliminate Robert so she could marry Jonathan and have him assume a paternal role for her children. Additionally, the prosecution highlighted a potential financial incentive for Sabrina, as she stood to gain $300,000 from life insurance payouts and could potentially receive a settlement from Robert's employer due to his death occurring at the workplace. Jonathan emerged as the pivotal witness for the prosecution, providing crucial testimony regarding the planning and execution of Robert's murder. He recounted to the court that both he and Sabrina concluded that the only way they could proceed with their relationship was if Robert was no longer alive. Their intention was for Jonathan to assume the role of the children's caregiver with the goal of raising them in a God-fearing environment. Throughout his testimony, Jonathan underscored their shared commitment to their faith, citing their love for God and the Bible. He outlined the extensive planning involved in Robert's murder, revealing that he had developed deep feelings for Sabrina over the course of their 2-year affair, and they were determined to eliminate the obstacle posed by her husband. Jonathan detailed the events of August 17, 2014, recalling how he returned home after a night shift and subsequently conferred with Sabrina over the phone about their plan before proceeding to the train yard to carry out the deed. During his testimony, Jonathan described in detail how he and Sabrina meticulously planned the murder, including discussions about the layout of the railway complex and strategies to avoid detection. Aware of Robert's potentially confrontational nature, Sabrina cautioned Jonathan to exercise caution, acknowledging that Robert was not someone who would surrender without resistance. Jonathan testified that he rode his motorcycle to Tahachapi, removing the license plate and bringing along a backpack containing a change of clothes and a .45 caliber handgun equipped with a makeshift silencer crafted from a large Maglite flashlight barrel and engine freeze plugs. Upon arriving at the Burlington Northern Santa Fe train yard, where Robert was employed, Jonathan observed Robert in a garage. He then positioned himself between nearby buildings, contemplating his next actions after saying a prayer. Subsequently, he entered the garage, engaging in a brief conversation with Robert. Seizing an opportune moment when Robert turned away to stock a refrigerator, Jonathan drew the handgun, approached him, and fatally shot him. Jonathan justified his actions by stating it was inevitable for Robert to be eliminated for him and Sabrina to progress in their relationship. Following the initial gunshot, Jonathan proceeded to the office, where he pilfered some items. He later explained to the court that he and Sabrina believed it would be advantageous for the incident to appear as a robbery. Returning to where Robert lay, Jonathan fired a second shot as a precautionary measure, ensuring Robert's demise. He recounted notifying Sabrina of the deed, and they mutually agreed to refrain from contacting each other for a period to evade suspicion. Jonathan felt relief after the killing. The court heard that shortly after Robert's murder, Sabrina sent numerous text messages to Jonathan expressing her love for him without questioning who might have killed her husband, suggesting she already knew the answer. According to Jonathan, the day Robert was killed was not the first attempt on his life. Months earlier, they had plotted to poison Robert using arsenic mixed into banana pudding, which Sabrina later instructed Robert to discard out of fear of being caught. The prosecution urged the jury to consider Jonathan's testimony, Sabrina's wiretapped calls, and text messages as evidence against her. The defense argued that Jonathan's testimony was unreliable, portraying him as a calculated killer who received a lighter sentence through a plea deal. Sabrina confessed to her affair with Jonathan, but denied any knowledge of his plan to kill her husband. The jury learned that Sabrina provided Jonathan with directions to Robert's workplace and details of his work hours on the day of the shooting, claiming she did so only to arrange a meeting with him. Sabrina testified that initially, she was content in her marriage to Robert, but their relationship dynamics shifted in 2008 when they began exploring a swingers lifestyle, which she described as altering the sanctity of their bond. Despite this, she affirmed her love for Robert and hadn't contemplated leaving him. However, the introduction of this lifestyle led to increased alcohol consumption, excessive partying, and strain on their relationship. During her testimony, Sabrina revealed that she met Jonathan while working at Costco, initially developing a friendship that eventually evolved into a romantic affair. She explained that Jonathan's attention made her feel special in a way she hadn't experienced before, describing the affair as a kind of second life. Sabrina made plans with Jonathan about their shared dreams while still expressing love for her husband, Robert. She emphasized that she never entertained the thought of harming her husband. When questioned about initially lying to the police regarding any involvement with someone else, Sabrina admitted it was due to embarrassment, not wanting her personal life to become public. Her lawyer argued that recorded calls and text messages contained no evidence of her knowledge of Jonathan's plan to kill Robert, stating, "There's nothing in there that says, 'Oh, by the way, get rid of my husband for me.'" The conviction of Michelle Troconis on all charges, including conspiring to kill Jennifer Dulos, hindering prosecution, and tampering with evidence related to the crime, marks the culmination of an extensive legal process. Following over 3 days of deliberations and 8 weeks of evidence, the jury determined Troconis, 49, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence, 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence, and 1 count of second-degree hindering prosecution.